The influence that two languages, when in contact, exert on each other is of prime importance in the context of world Englishes. Effective communication in the context of world Englishes, that is, using varieties of English other than the native varieties in different socio-cultural settings, depends on two processes. One is nativization and the other is Englishization. To ensure effective communication, it is important that users of English all over the world are aware of these two processes. These two terms were introduced to the World Englishes literature by Baraj Khachru. By nativization, we mean the adaptation of English to local socio-cultural settings. So the adaptation of English to the new socio-cultural settings to which it has been imported. It is this nativization of English which gives rise to different varieties of English to some extent, and also it is because of nativization of English that we use such qualifiers with the name of English as US English, Singaporean English, Indian English, and also Pakistani English. Englishization is the opposite of this process. So Englishization refers to the transformation which takes place in the local languages, in non-English languages, and not only languages but also non-English cultures as a result of exposure to the English language or as a result of their contact with the English language. Englishization is an influence which can be observed easily. So it is a very obvious influence that one can observe in the use of language by non-native speakers. The levels of language or the ranges of the influence of English includes literary genres and also pronunciation. So the range of the influence of English in this way on local languages is quite wide, from pronunciation to literature. It influences all levels of language. Because of these two processes, we witness another phenomena which is called code mixing or code switching. Code mixing can be described as changes that a speaker makes from or the change that a person makes from one language to another within a sentence. So when you are using a language or when you're speaking, let's say, and you shift from one language to another within a sentence is called a code mixing. For example, I want some chai. So this is code mixing. While speaking English, I've used the Urdu word chai. I am tired phir se. So again, I have used an Urdu phrase phir se while uttering an English sentence. Code switching is the change from one language to another across sentences or larger language domains. So when you change from one language to another, not within a sentence but across a sentence, then it is code switching. For example, you utter one sentence in English and the next in Urdu. For example, I want some tea. Sara din maine ek cup chai nahi pi. So this is code switching. Code mixing and code switching are two very important features of different varieties of English and the users of world Englishes, the language of the users of world Englishes. Again, it is a phenomena which is readily observable. It is readily observable because you can notice it whenever non-native English speaker uses language orally. However, this practice is not fully approved by monolingual researchers, those purists who believe that the target for any user of English, any user of English as second language should be native English, native standard English. They do not approve of this practice of code switching and code mixing. What we need is an understanding on the part of these monolingual researchers and purists as to what it is that prompts the use of different languages within or across sentences. In other words, code mixing and code switching. It's not only the linguistic details of this practice that we need to look into, we also need to look at the socio-cultural reasons behind code switching and code mixing. For example, when does a speaker feel the need to do code mixing or code switching, with what kind of interlocutors and in what socio-cultural settings? For example, if a lecturer or a professor is delivering a lecture to a large audience in a university, the audience will comprise some students who are well versed in English, other students who may not be that proficient in English, and yet other students whose proficiency in English may be very low. So all these students may be very good in the content course, but their proficiency in English may vary in degree of proficiency, let's say. If a lecturer does not give much thought to the requirements of the students who are not very highly proficient in English and continues delivering the lecture in English, the students who do not follow the lecturer completely because of the deficiency or because of their poor proficiency in English will suffer. So sometimes there are practical reasons for the users of English in outer and expanding circle to do code switching and code mixing. So we must be fully aware of these two processes of nativization and Englishization and their importance or their usefulness in the context of world Englishes.